You blind. If you sit in your church and you know, well, why can't I live like that? You can't tell me you sit in church and you don't be like, well, why can't I live like my pastor? Why can't I live like my first lady?
I'm pretty sure they don't want me to be there because I said Christianity, the church. I said that.
So yeah, I'm cussing. Okay. And you drink too. Yeah, you do. Okay, third, you done dealt with some hurt too in the church. Oh, okay,
What happens when one of the largest voices in gospel music goes out and openly backs a contentious accusation against one of the most powerful individuals in the church today? LeAndria Johnson just committed the unimaginable, and the aftermath is rocking the very foundations of the Christian community. She's come out in favor of Wanita Binham's charges against T.D. Jakes. And trust me, you won't believe what she said. Stay tuned to find out why this brave move is producing more upheaval than anybody thought. The field of gospel music and ministry is no stranger to controversy. From financial scandals to personal betrayals, the public spotlight continuously hovers over individuals in positions of authority inside the church. But what happens when one of the most recognized gospel performers, LeAndria Johnson, risks it all to publicly back a claim that might shatter the very foundations of one of the most prominent megachurch leaders in the world? In this video, we're going deep into the combustible scenario surrounding LeAndria Johnson and her choice to openly back Wanita Binham's severe charges against T.D. Jakes. You may be wondering, why now? And what's the true story behind this bombshell? Well, we've gathered all the information, and trust me, this is a tale that continues becoming more convoluted as new pieces fall into place.
Marvin Winans. Now I'm gonna take my shades off on this. Marvin Winans. Yeah. You can say I'm not a product of you, because the word got back to me. She ain't no product of me.
In today's video, you're going to uncover the alarming charges that Wanita Binham made about T.D. Jakes. Why LeAndria Johnson took the risk of coming into the public limelight and proclaiming her support for Wanita, what the gospel community and the church world are saying about these charges, the consequences and the hidden realities that may eventually be disclosed. Stick around as we break down this dramatic drama and explain what's actually going on behind the scenes. The first piece of this jigsaw starts with Wanita Binham, a recognized and strong person in the Christian ministry field. For years, she's been a powerful voice within the Pentecostal movement, recognized not just for her preaching but for her genuine, emotive experiences that have touched the hearts of millions. However, lately, Binham surprised her fans and the whole church community when she came up with some very serious claims against T.D. Jakes, the founder and pastor of the Potter's House, one of the biggest megachurches in the world. Binham's charges weren't only about theological divisions or petty misunderstandings. No, what she described was significantly more personal and profoundly distressing. She accused Jakes of manipulative conduct, emotional abuse, and seeking to ruin her image in the eyes of their combined flock. It's not only what she said, but the fact that she talked so frankly about it. This wasn't an isolated, quiet debate. Wanita Binham spoke out publicly, leaving the church and many others wondering what was actually going on behind closed doors. As predicted, the accusations created a ripple effect across the Christian community. Fans of T.D. Jakes, who consider him as a man of God and a pillar of religion, were stunned. And yet, this wasn't the first time that Jakes' name had been entangled in scandal. Over the years, there have been murmurs of mismanagement, financial disputes, and strained personal ties. But Wanita Binham's assertions elevated things to a whole new level. The question on everyone's mind, could it be true? Now, you would assume that with such a severe charge, Binham's claim would be pushed off or disregarded by the public, but that's not what occurred. The minute Binham spoke up, others started to listen. But what truly made this scenario erupt into the public attention was the abrupt participation of LeAndria Johnson, the Grammy Award-winning gospel singer.
And I had a talk with one of your little friend boys. I had a talk. And they told me, oh, he not gonna want to talk to you. I said, why? Because he don't believe in what you're doing. Oh, okay, that's good. You don't believe in what I'm doing. Who are you? But it's all good, though.
Here's when things take a drastic turn. LeAndria Johnson, a prominent gospel performer recognized for her strong voice and candidness about her personal problems, has always been someone willing to speak her truth. But her latest action to back Wanita Binham's charges against TD Jakes has sent shockwaves across the gospel community. For those who may not be acquainted, LeAndria Johnson has long been a contentious figure in the gospel world. She achieved recognition for her genuine, passionate songs and her uncensored honesty about her beliefs and personal life. Her experiences with drug misuse, her public divorce, and her time spent navigating the ups and downs of the church world offered her a unique perspective on the difficulties and faults of ministry. Despite the difficulties around her, she has always been upfront and frank about the reality of living in the public eye, particularly as a woman in a highly scrutinized environment like gospel music. But this newest move is larger than anything she's done previously. When LeAndria Johnson publicly placed her support behind Wanita Binham's charges, she not only magnified the allegations against TD Jakes, but she also made a strong statement about sticking up for what she believes in, even if it meant confronting the existing quo. This wasn't simply a casual comment. LeAndria didn't only voice her own viewpoint in private. She endorsed Wanita openly. She rushed to social media and other channels to vocalize her support, making it obvious that she believes Binham's version of the tale. In an Instagram post that went viral, LeAndria revealed her opinions on the topic, noting, "Sometimes standing up for truth means going against the grain, even when it's unpleasant. I've seen what goes on behind the curtains, and I won't be silent." These words were a direct challenge to the very people who had supported TD Jakes for years. By supporting Binham, LeAndria also took a step that could potentially cost her career. TD Jakes is a titan in the gospel world, and publicly aligning with someone who has accused him of serious misconduct means LeAndria could be alienating a significant portion of her fan base. In the church world, where loyalty and hierarchy play a huge role, her support of Wanita is more than just a statement of solidarity. It's a direct challenge to the church establishment that has protected figures like TD Jakes for years. But why would LeAndria make such a bold move? Why risk everything for a controversy that could potentially derail her career? It's clear that she's no stranger to speaking her mind. But there's something deeper here, and that's exactly what we'll explore next. Now that LeAndria Johnson publicly supported Wanita Binham's claims against TD Jakes, the ripple effect was felt across the entire gospel community. The reaction? Mixed. Some cheered LeAndria on, praising her for her courage and unwavering commitment to standing up for what she believes in. Others, however, saw this as a deeply problematic move, one that threatened to shake the very foundations of the church and the image of one of its most powerful leaders. First, the supporters. And there were many. LeAndria has always had a loyal following, particularly those who admire her authenticity and willingness to speak out about the difficulties and challenges of life. She quickly garnered support from people who felt like she was finally speaking truth to power, standing up for the underdog and breaking the silence on an issue that has plagued the church for years: the abuse of power by influential leaders. For them, LeAndria became a symbol of resistance, a voice for the voiceless, and a reminder that even the most respected figures within the church need to be held accountable. Social media was on fire with posts from fans and fellow gospel artists who agreed with LeAndria's decision to support Wanita. Many applauded her bravery in calling out what they viewed as the abusive behavior of church leaders who used their power and influence to control and manipulate others. Some even made connections to their own personal experiences, sharing stories of how the church had failed them and how LeAndria's stance was giving them the courage to speak their own truths. But then came the backlash. As expected, There were also powerful voices within the gospel community who sharply disagreed with LeAndria's public support of Wanita Binham's accusations. Many saw LeAndria's actions as a betrayal, not just of T.D. Jakes, but of the larger church institution she had once been a part of. After all, Jakes' church, the Potter's House, is one of the largest megachurches in the world, with a global following and a reputation that spans decades. The implications of supporting such a bold accusation against him were enormous. Critics of LeAndria quickly took to social media, calling her a troublemaker, divisive, and irresponsible. They accused her of undermining the integrity of the church and playing into divisive narratives that could harm the ministry of T.D. Jakes. Some even questioned her own spiritual maturity, pointing out her previous personal struggles as evidence that she might not fully understand the consequences of her actions. Perhaps the most striking reaction came from T.D. Jakes' supporters. Many pastors, leaders, and even fellow gospel artists who had worked with Jakes for years were fiercely defensive of him. They dismissed the allegations as nothing more than an attempt to tarnish the reputation of a man who had built an empire of faith, giving millions a sense of hope and community. Some claimed that Wanita Binham was simply disgruntled and seeking attention. Others even suggested that LeAndria was being manipulated by Binham, accusing her of acting impulsively without fully understanding the bigger picture. But here's the real twist in this story. As the backlash continued to grow, LeAndria didn't back down. Instead, she stood firm in her belief that the truth had to come out regardless of the cost. Her continued defense of Wanita Binham's accusations in the face of mounting pressure further solidified her stance. What made this particularly tense was the way the controversy started to divide the gospel community. The support for LeAndria was growing, but so was the resentment. The lines were being drawn, and it wasn't just about a disagreement between two people. It was about something much larger. The question on everyone's mind was whether the church would continue to ignore the darker side of its leaders, or if this was the beginning of a new movement within gospel music and ministry, one that called for accountability and transparency. But the most surprising twist came when other gospel figures began to speak out, some in support of LeAndria and others calling for unity in the face of division. What could happen next? Would more gospel artists and ministers step forward to back LeAndria's claims? Would T.D. Jakes respond? And if so, how would he defend himself? LeAndria Johnson's decision to speak out in support of Wanita Binham against T.D. Jakes did not come without its own set of personal struggles. As much as the controversy over her support shook the gospel world, it was also a deeply personal issue for her. Behind the bold statements and public displays of confidence, LeAndria was battling her own inner turmoil. Many people failed to realize that the woman who stood up and publicly supported Wanita was not just a gospel artist, but also a human being, someone who had fought her own demons, made mistakes, and paid the price for them. You see, LeAndria had always been someone who spoke her mind, even when it wasn't the most popular thing to do. Throughout her career, she had been through some very public lows, from struggles with addiction to the ups and downs of being a gospel star in the spotlight. There was a time when her career seemed to be over before it really began, but LeAndria managed to bounce back from it all. Her authenticity and rawness were what made her music so compelling, but they were also the source of her greatest struggles. But what made her support for Wanita even more striking was the timing. LeAndria had just recently overcome personal battles of her own, including overcoming substance abuse and reconciling her faith after a very public divorce. So when she took a public stand on behalf of Wanita Binham, she was not just speaking out for someone else's cause, she was fighting for her own peace. She knew that speaking out was not just about defending Wanita, but also about defending her own truth. Many fans might have seen LeAndria as a rebel, someone who would go to great lengths to challenge authority. But behind that exterior was a woman searching for healing. Healing from her past mistakes, healing from the emotional scars that had built up over the years, and healing from the pressure of constantly being scrutinized in the public eye. Her actions, while bold, were a way of showing that she was not afraid to stand up for what she believed was right, even when it cost her personally. LeAndria had faced deep criticism for her struggles, especially in the church world. For many, the idea of someone like her, a gospel artist with such a troubled past, speaking out against a powerful church leader was nothing short of scandalous. Yet for others, it was exactly what they needed to hear. LeAndria's own battles made her the perfect person to speak up about the dark side of the church because she was no stranger to the hurt, shame, and betrayal that many others had experienced. This is where her story intersects with Wanita Binham's. Both women had been through the fire and emerged with their own scars, and now they were being united by a common cause. LeAndria's personal journey of redemption became the foundation for her advocacy. She was not just taking a stand for Wanita Binham, but for every person who had been hurt, manipulated, or mistreated in the church. She was doing what many felt they couldn't do, calling out the elephant in the room, especially at the risk of facing the wrath of powerful figures in the gospel community. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Her vulnerability became her strength. In a world that demands perfection from gospel artists, LeAndria's willingness to own her imperfections resonated deeply with her fans. They didn't just support her because she was a famous singer, they supported her because she represented realness. In an industry where image often trumps substance, LeAndria's willingness to open up about her struggles gave her a voice that couldn't be ignored. The emotional toll of speaking out wasn't easy. LeAndria knew that aligning herself with Wanita meant alienating powerful allies in the church world. She was aware that she might lose fans, sponsors, and even her credibility as an artist. But she felt it was worth it. What makes this part of the story fascinating is how LeAndria managed to navigate through the emotional and professional chaos while maintaining her integrity. At one point, she even made a social media post reflecting on the sacrifices she had made and the weight of her decisions. It wasn't just about the allegations against TD Jakes anymore. It was about her own personal journey of truth. And here's where the real drama begins. In the coming weeks, we saw LeAndria publicly wrestle with the backlash. She posted videos addressing her critics, sharing her heart with fans, and even offering up prayers for healing, not just for herself, but for those who were hurt by the scandal. Her emotional outpouring left many fans in tears because it showed that LeAndria wasn't just fighting for justice, she was fighting for healing. But this wasn't just about her. It was a larger statement that people were paying attention to. Her voice had become a beacon for others who had been victimized and silenced. But here's the craziest part. As LeAndria's support for Wanita continued to draw attention, something unexpected happened. Other gospel artists started coming out with their own stories of mistreatment. Some were hesitant at first, unsure whether they wanted to publicly join the fight. But little by little, the walls began to break down. LeAndria's courage ignited a fire, and suddenly the floodgates opened. Could it be that LeAndria had just begun a movement that would forever change the gospel music industry? The question was lingering in the air. The church as we knew it was beginning to face a reckoning, and LeAndria Johnson was at the center of it all. As LeAndria Johnson's public support for Wanita Binham continued to stir the waters, the consequences of her stance became clearer. The more LeAndria spoke out, the more the spotlight turned not only on TD Jakes, but on the entire system that had allowed for this type of behavior to persist. What started as a small ripple began to grow into a tsunami of public scrutiny. It wasn't just the public eye that was on the gospel music world, it was the church itself. How would they handle this backlash? Would they sweep it under the rug as they had done so many times before? Or would this be the moment when they were forced to reckon with their actions? This was a defining moment for the church, and with every word LeAndria spoke, the cracks in the church's pristine image grew wider and wider. For decades, many powerful figures in the Christian community, including TD Jakes, had been seen as almost untouchable. These men and women were revered figures, often perceived as above reproach. But now, with Wanita Binham's allegations against TD Jakes and LeAndria's unexpected support, the walls that shielded these influential pastors were beginning to crumble. LeAndria's boldness became the catalyst for what would later be recognized as one of the most significant moments in the modern church's history. The veil of perfection that many church leaders had wrapped themselves in for years was suddenly ripped away, and the ugly truth of corruption abuse of power, and deceit was exposed for all to see. This was a reality many churchgoers had long suspected, but had been too afraid to confront. But now, it was out in the open, and there was no turning back. What happened next was nothing short of explosive. As LeAndria continued to publicly align herself with Wanita Binham, other high-profile figures in the gospel world began to quietly support her, some even coming forward with their own stories of mistreatment at the hands of powerful pastors and church leaders. This was the beginning of what many called a spiritual awakening, a call for accountability, justice, and transparency within the church. People no longer wanted to blindly follow these leaders. They wanted the truth. LeAndria's actions triggered a domino effect. The more support she received from her fans, the more powerful figures in the church felt the pressure to respond. The church's response was swift but largely dismissive. Some church leaders tried to downplay the significance of the allegations, claiming they were baseless or exaggerated. Others attempted to ignore the controversy altogether, hoping it would blow over, but it didn't. The public outcry only grew louder and louder, and soon it wasn't just about TD Jakes anymore. It was about the system that protected him. And that's where the story took a darker turn. With so many people now paying attention to the allegations, LeAndria faced her own set of challenges. The gospel community, once a source of her success and support, turned its back on her. LeAndria faced a backlash like no other, and she found herself at the center of a storm that threatened to consume her. The public had spoken, but now she had to pay the price for standing up for what she believed was right. As the scandal unfolded, the industry began to fracture. Gospel music, which had once been a sacred and respected genre, became a battlefield. Artists who had once praised pastors like TD Jakes were now questioning their faith, while others tried to distance themselves from the controversy.